On the morning this word reaches you, something inside you has already been moving long before your hands could name it. You did not arrive here by accident, and the weight you have carried has not been wasted in the dark. There are seasons when the soul feels like a room after a long rain, quiet, waiting, and full of a light that has not yet entered. This is one of those mornings, and the silence around you is not empty, it is prepared. You have been asking, perhaps without words, whether the door was still there, whether the promise had been forgotten, whether the wait had become the message itself. But listen closely, because there is a difference between delay and denial, and what has surrounded you has not been denial. The hidden chapter of your life has been gathering breath, and even now it is beginning to open where your eyes have not yet looked. A lamp in a hallway, a chair beside an untouched window, a name written in a place no one else notices. All of it can become a sign that the unseen has not abandoned you. The ache you have felt has been a witness, not a sentence. The tears you swallowed in private were not invisible to heaven, and the strength you used to rise again each day was not small in the place where true things are measured. You have been living inside a narrowing corridor, but a corridor is not a prison when there is still a door at the end. So stay with this voice, because what seemed delayed is not gone, and what seemed sealed is not lost. There is a chapter opening now, and it is opening toward you. You may not have realized how much of your life has been shaped by waiting for a sound that never arrived on time. The phone on the table, the chair by the wall, the unopened envelope, the shoes by the bed. Each ordinary thing can feel heavy when the heart has been listening for a word that did not come. Yet even in that waiting, you kept standing, and that standing mattered. You kept moving through the day while carrying questions that had no easy shape. You smiled when you had to, you answered when you could, and you kept the deeper ache folded away where no one could interrupt it. That hidden endurance is never wasted. It becomes the ground on which a different kind of clarity can stand. When the spirit has been attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zurzazuru readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment. Pressed for too long, even a small opening feels like sunrise in a sealed room. And the opening does not always announce itself with thunder. Sometimes it begins as a quiet certainty you cannot explain to anyone else. You look again at the same road, but now something in you knows the road is changing. The old language of fear starts to lose its authority when the inner witness grows steady. This is why the wait has been difficult, because it was shaping your recognition before the moment arrived. A field does not shout when the seed is ready, but the soil knows. Your life has been speaking that way too, and the speech is becoming clearer now. What was buried is not dead, and what was delayed is not denied. It is being moved into view. There is a sacred kind of exhaustion that comes when a person has carried too much hope in too little strength. You know that weariness, the kind that settles behind the eyes and behind the ribs, where even sleep cannot fully reach it. Still, you have continued, and that continuation has been a testimony. In the small hours, when the room was dark and every sound seemed louder than your faith, you still did not disappear. You remained, even if only by a thread, and that thread was enough to keep you connected to the next breath. A glass on the sink, a blanket pulled tighter, a lamp left on in another room. These simple things can hold more grief than anyone sees. Yet they can also hold a promise, because ordinary objects are often where the heart learns to recognize mercy. You have been asked to trust what you cannot yet measure, and that asking has felt costly, but the cost has not been meaningless. In places where you expected only loss, a deeper patience has been forming. In places where you feared collapse, a steadier center has been growing. That center is not loud, but it is real. It knows how to stand when the weather shifts. It knows how to wait without surrendering. It knows that the opening of a new chapter often begins before the first page turns. The night did not win, even if it stayed longer than you wished. The chapter is opening now, and your life is beginning to read differently. There are moments when the heart has to admit that it has been living on old instructions. The old instruction says, stay small, do not expect too much, do not ask again. Do not imagine that the door will open for you, but something in you has already outgrown that voice. You may still hear it at times, especially when the room is quiet and the future feels far away, yet its power is fading. I see the place where you have been asking for confirmation and receiving only fragments. I see the long hallway of unanswered questions, the cup gone cold beside you, the message you reread, the calendar page that seemed to promise more than it delivered. None of that has been accidental. It has been revealing how deeply your spirit still longs to trust. And that longing is not weakness. It is the very place where the new chapter can enter, because when the heart has been honest about its hunger, it becomes able to recognize real provision when it appears. You do not need to force meaning onto every delay. You only need to stay awake enough to notice when mercy begins to move. The signs may be subtle at first, but subtle is not small. A shift in peace, a softer breath, a door that no longer feels locked in the same way. These can all be the first lines of a page turning. You have been carrying a sentence that has not finished speaking, and now the next line is being written. If even one of those signs has landed inside you, if your shoulders dropped at any point while listening, type 888 in the comments. Let it be your quiet agreement that overflow is being prepared where you once expected only shortage. Type 888, then come back to me. There is something powerful in naming the moment instead of letting it pass you by unseen. What you write becomes a witness to the part of you that knows this is more than coincidence. The chapter is not opening to flatter your hope, it is opening to steady it. And when you return, come back with the awareness that you are not speaking into empty air. You are speaking into a season that is listening. Even now, what was scattered is beginning to gather. Even now, what was postponed is beginning to organize itself around purpose. The delay was never the final word. It was the threshold. And thresholds are meant to be crossed, not camped beside forever. Stay with the movement, because the next sign is not far away. It is already approaching the edge of your noticing. You may have thought that the hardest part was the waiting, but often the harder part is the moment when waiting begins to loosen and the heart has to risk believing again. That is the place where many people hesitate, because disappointment teaches the soul to be careful. Yet careful is not the same as closed. Your heart can be cautious and still be open. It can remember the past and still step toward the future. Look at the way light changes across a kitchen floor in the early morning, or the way a curtain moves when air enters a room that has been still for hours. Nothing dramatic happens, but everything changes. That is how this chapter begins to reveal itself. Not always through spectacle, but through movement that you only notice because the atmosphere has altered. The old heaviness no longer settles in the same way. The same hallway feels less like a dead end and more like a passage. You do not have to invent hope, because hope is already finding its way back into your breathing. The wisdom now is to stay honest enough to recognize it. The chapter that opens for you will not ask you to pretend the past did not hurt. It will ask you to carry the scar without making it the ruler of your future. This is what maturity in the spirit often looks like. Not a loud declaration, but a quiet yes. A yes that can survive the next hour. A yes that does not collapse when the room goes silent again. A yes that says the door is still a door, even if it has not yet moved. A person can live for a long time between two realities, one visible and one promised, and the tension of that in-between place can reshape the whole body. The jaw tightens, the shoulders rise, the stomach learns to brace before anything even happens. You have known that kind of vigilance. You have watched yourself prepare for disappointment while still hoping for mercy. That is why this word matters now, because it is not only speaking to your thoughts, it is speaking to the places in you that have been guarding too hard for too long. The room around you may look unchanged for a while, but inner weather can shift before outer scenery does. A candle on a table, a key resting in a dish, a window open just a little, all of these can become small sermons about readiness. The soul begins to understand that not every closed thing is forever, and not every open thing arrives with noise. Sometimes a chapter opens like a hand unclenching. Sometimes like breath returning after grief. Sometimes like the realization that you are no longer asking from panic but from trust. That change is sacred. It means the old fear has not disappeared, but it no longer leads. The heart is learning to follow a quieter authority. The path ahead may still feel undefined, yet undefined is not the same as absent. There is a future here that has not yet been fully named, and it is already leaning toward you. What was heavy is being made lighter by truth. What was locked is beginning to show the shape of a key, and what seemed impossible is slowly becoming familiar to faith. By the time a door begins to open, the one standing before it is often not the same person who first asked for the opening. That is why the process has felt so long. You were not only waiting for an outcome, you were being prepared to hold it. A new chapter requires a new kind of strength, the kind that can receive without panic and endure without bitterness. Consider how a field receives rain after drought. At first, the soil takes it carefully, almost suspiciously, as if unsure whether abundance will stay. Yet gradually the ground softens, and what had been cracked begins to heal. Your heart has been like that ground. It has had to learn that receiving is not the same as losing control. The window in the room, the sound of water in a sink, the first warmth of sun on the back of your neck, these ordinary things can suddenly carry a tenderness that was missing before. They remind you that life keeps arriving, even after long silence. You do not need to force the pace of that arrival. You only need to remain present enough to notice it. The chapter opening in your life is not a performance. It is a return. It is the return of clarity, of purpose, of holy attention. Even the pauses are speaking now. Even the empty places are learning to echo differently. The same story that once felt stalled is now gathering movement. And the movement is not random, because what is from God does not merely happen, it ripens. There is a reason some promises feel far away until the very moment they are near. Distance can be deceptive. A light seen from the road can seem small, but as you walk closer, it reveals a whole house, a whole room, a whole welcome. Your life has had that kind of distance in it. What looked tiny from where you stood was never truly tiny. What looked delayed was never truly cancelled. And what looked silent was often full of unseen preparation. The objects around you have carried more meaning than they seemed to carry at first. A stack of papers, a locked drawer, a seat that stayed empty, each can become part of a story you did not choose but are now learning to interpret. You are not being asked to romanticize the pain. You are being asked to recognize that the pain has not had the final say. That recognition can feel risky, because hope exposed to disappointment learns caution. But caution can become wisdom when it is no longer fear dressed up as maturity. The chapter opening before you is inviting a different posture. It is saying, you may come closer now, you may breathe here, you may trust what you can only partly see. The heart does not need every answer before it can step. It only needs enough light for the next step, and that light is already present. The old map is fading, but a truer direction is forming. Stay near that direction. It knows where it is going, even if you do not yet know the whole path. Sometimes the most difficult thing is not the burden itself, but the way the burden has trained your body to expect another blow. You flinch before the sound arrives. You guard before the hand reaches. You prepare for loss while still praying for gain. That kind of internal weather can make a person feel isolated, even when they are surrounded. Yet you have not been abandoned in that weather. Something in you has remained watchful for a reason. It has kept you from mistaking temporary darkness for permanent night. It has kept a small lamp burning in the corner of your spirit. And that lamp is still here. There is a table by the window, a coat on the chair, a stillness in the room that asks to be listened to rather than feared. What has been happening around you is not merely emotional turbulence. It is a threshold. Thresholds are uncomfortable because they ask for movement before full certainty. But movement is often where revelation begins. The chapter opening now is not trying to erase the past 5 minutes or 5 years. It is trying to show you that the story has more room than the grief gave it. Even the ache can become instruction when it is no longer worshipped as identity. You are allowed to carry memory without living under its rule. You are allowed to notice the door and believe it was meant for you. The room may still be the same room, but the atmosphere is changing. A different future is beginning to press gently against the edge of your present. If the image I have been walking you through has reached a place you cannot fully explain, type "I see it" in the comments. Let the recognition become visible in your own words. Type "I see it," then come back to me. There is a reason this matters, because naming what you recognize helps you stop doubting what your spirit already understood. The chapter is not merely imagined, it is being discerned. And discernment grows stronger when you answer honestly to what is being shown. The room, the door, the threshold, the light, all of it has been more than scenery. It has been a way of describing the movement already happening within you. When you return with the understanding that you are not outside the story. You are inside it, and the next lines are still unfolding. The heart that can recognize the opening is the heart that can enter it. So stay attentive. The signs are not disappearing, they are deepening, and what deepens will soon become impossible to ignore. There is a point in every long wait where the soul begins to understand that endurance itself has become part of the message. You did not only survive the interval, you were changed by it. That change can be subtle enough to miss if you look too quickly, but it is real. The way you answer now is different. The way you pause before speaking is different. The way you carry disappointment has changed shape. Something in you has learned how to remain tender without becoming fragile. That is not a small thing. It is a work of grace. Think of a room after the storm has passed, when the floor is still damp and the window is still open and the air smells different. The storm is over, but its passage has left evidence. So has your season. It has left evidence in how you pray, how you listen, how you notice small mercies that would once have slipped past unnoticed. The chapter opening now is not asking for denial. It is asking for recognition. Recognition that the delay taught you discernment. Recognition that the silence taught you depth. Recognition that what felt like emptiness was also a workshop. Even the hardest parts have been shaping a steadier voice inside you, a voice that no longer needs constant proof to know that goodness is still possible, a voice that can stand in a quiet room and say, the story is still moving, the door is not imaginary, the light is not late, the moment is beginning to show itself. When the first hint of change arrives, it can be almost too gentle to trust. A text comes at the right time, a conversation opens differently. A heaviness you had carried all afternoon begins to loosen without explanation. These are small things, but small things are often the first language of mercy. You have been trained by hardship to look for grand evidence, yet grace frequently speaks in whispers before it speaks in declarations. That is why your attention matters now. Stay close to the soft movements. Stay near the subtle shifts. Do not dismiss what is quiet simply because it is quiet. A curtain can tell you that wind has entered the room even before you feel it on your skin. A chair can tell you that someone has just stood up and is about to return. A hallway can tell you that movement is happening beyond the bend. In the same way, your inner life is beginning to tell you that the season is turning. The chapter opening before you is not a fantasy you must maintain by force. It is a reality you are being invited to notice. You do not have to manufacture certainty. You only need enough honesty to admit that something is changing. That admission is already a form of faith. And faith, when it is real, does not always shout. Sometimes it breathes. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it simply keeps the lamp on until the morning comes. If something in this message has confirmed what you already knew deep down, let your like be your amen without words. Not as a metric, but as an agreement that what was named here was named correctly. The gesture matters because it says the recognition has found a place to rest. Even without speaking, you can mark the moment with a quiet yes. And when you do, let that yes remain inside the story rather than outside it. The chapter is opening in part because your spirit has not fully let go of the expectation that goodness can still arrive. That expectation has been protected through more than you realize. So keep honoring it. Keep making room for what is beginning. The room does not have to become loud to become holy. A subtle turning is still a turning. A hidden shift is still a shift. And what is true in the hidden place will soon become visible enough for you to name without hesitation. Stay with the opening. The next movement is already near. There is someone in your life who needs this exact message tonight. Someone working harder than the people around them and watching the door stay closed. Someone whose face just came into your mind as I have been speaking. Send this to them, not as a recommendation, but as a delivery, the same way it was delivered to you. Perhaps that person has been carrying strength that no one applauds, or a silence that has become heavier than their words. Perhaps they are the one who always answers for others, but rarely gets answered in return. The chapter opening here may be for you, and it may also be the way someone else is reminded that their waiting has not been ignored. A delivered word can enter a room where advice cannot. It can sit beside a tired heart without demanding performance. So let the recognition move outward if it must. Let it become care. Let it become the right message at the right time. The story does not end with private comfort. It can become a bridge. And sometimes the bridge is the very thing that helps you understand your own healing more clearly. The opening is wider than one person. It is already reaching through the lives connected to yours. Before this closes, type the words "I am chosen" in the comments. Not as a wish, not as a hope, but as confirmation. Type it slowly and let your fingers do what your spirit is already doing. There is power in agreeing with the name that has been waiting underneath the noise. The chapter opening in your life is not asking you to pretend you are untouched by pain. It is asking you to stand in the middle of that pain and still say yes to being led. That is what makes the declaration true. It is not made from ease. It is made from recognition. Your place is not erased by the struggle. Your identity is not reduced by the weight. The opening is not only around you, it is also within you, where the old fear is losing its authority. Speak from that place now. Let the declaration settle like a seal over the day. You are not abandoned to the corridor. You are being brought through it. You are not forgotten in the hallway. You are being addressed by name. What has been opened cannot be unseen once the heart has truly recognized it. That is why this moment matters so much. You are not leaving this word the same way you entered it. Something in you has been rearranged by patience, and something in you has been awakened by truth. The room may still look ordinary, but ordinary is often where the miraculous chooses to begin. A cup on the counter, a light in another room, a quiet breath before sleep. Each can now carry a different weight. You have learned that the soul can survive more than it thought, and it can also receive more than it once expected. This is the deeper gift of the weight. It does not only test you, it teaches you how to recognize arrival when it comes without warning. So keep your heart soft enough to notice what is opening. Keep your hands ready to receive what you once feared would never come. Keep your attention near the threshold, because the threshold is not a metaphor only. It is a real place where your life is crossing from one understanding into another, and as you cross, you are not alone. The one who saw you in the long silence has not lost sight of you in the opening. The chapter you waited for is not just beginning, it is being given back to you. Walk gently, listen closely, and receive what is now unfolding before you. It is sealed. Attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuru readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment.